This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an online platform that helps you find a therapist that will match your needs. BetterHelp offers live video chats, open discussion, conversations with real therapists in real time if that's what you need. I personally love it and have used it now for almost 2 years. I would really recommend, if you need someone to talk to that is not in your family or your friend circle, that you reach out to betterhelp.com and you will receive 10% off if you use my code BGP. So again, that's betterhelp.com/BGP to find the right online counselor for you. Hi, welcome to Big Girl Pants Podcast, where we talk about health, wellness, careers, parenting, relationships, and everything in between. I am your host, April Melton. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, welcome back to Big Girl Pants Podcast. We have a returning guest today, Valerie Rocio. And Valerie has actually been here before. She came on the podcast back when it was Shapiro and I in 2019. But for everybody listening who maybe didn't hear that episode, I want you to talk about yourself, number one, and your businesses, number two, and, you know, just throw in a little sprinkle of what you like to do in your free time or something like that, if you even know what that is.
Yeah, I was going to say free time.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Curveball.
Sleep.
Well, I'm excited to be back.
Yes.
Thanks for having me again.
Of course.
It has been too long.
You're always welcome.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So my introduction, I guess, has gotten a little longer since the last time we talked.
No big deal. No big deal.
Toot my own horn. So I'm Valerie Rocio. Like you mentioned, I have a couple companies. So my primary company is Lumos Creative. It's a content marketing agency. We work with established woman-owned businesses, mostly in the DFW market. We are a full-service agency. We do everything from social media management, marketing strategy, content creation, photography, videography, web design, graphic design, and email marketing. Under Lumos Creative, we have a couple sister companies. Lumos Moments is our lifestyle studio where we do family photography, engagements, maternity, lifestyle events like quinceañeras, birthday parties, anything like that, as well as wedding videography. And then our newest sister is Lumos Sports Media. So that is a sports production company. We do player headshots, team photos, action shots, game coverage. This can be for youth or professional level sports.
So you have the one podcast, which is the You Glow Girl podcast, and then you're starting another one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So next month, we're launching the Creative Entrepreneur podcast, which is going to be by Lumos Creative, my marketing agency. And that's going to be a podcast specifically curated for creatives and entrepreneurs. So it's going to be a lot of marketing guidance, business guidance. So it'll be a lot of creative tactics for the business owner who maybe is doing their own marketing and creative, but it's also going to be the business guidance for a creative who is wanting to turn their craft into a business,
Sure.
like a freelancer or somebody who wants to build an agency like I did. So that's going to be launching in April.
Yeah.
Which is exciting because that's also the anniversary of You Glow Girl. So
Perfect.
Just a couple things
Even
coming around
better.
the corner.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I think we forgot one, Wanderlust.
Yes.
Yes.
So the rando business is Wanderlust Picnics.
Which, okay, how did you come up with the idea of that?
You know, TikTok is a wonderful thing. So when it was so last year, what year are we in now?
2022.
So 2021, in 2020.
Yeah, I was going to say pandemic.
Yeah,
for sure.
So we were like deep pandemic.
Right.
I was on TikTok and I saw these girls in San Francisco doing it. And I was like, that is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I was
and
like,
also easy,
and it's social distancing approved.
Right.
It's outdoors.
Right.
And I was like, I have to you know how you see
I
these
have to
ideas and you're
capitalize
like,
on this
yes.
right now.
Like there's times where you see an idea and you're like, that's genius. But then there's times where I'm like, no, like I need to do this like immediately.
You have like that guttural reaction. You're like, I need to do this right now.
Yes. And I'm that person where it's like, I have a lot of ideas and I run with a lot of them. And my husband and my best friend are both kind of like, do you need to be doing that? And I was like, need? No. Want? Yes. So I ended up just collecting it. This was in November, December 2020. And so I started collecting inventory. I am not a very carpenter, like DIY, crafty person.
Me neither, man.
We managed to put together some tables and I was the project manager.
And they're beautiful. Like
Thank you.
Yeah. And the picnics,
the picnic tables, the equipment, like the decorations, everything gorgeous.
Thank you.
Straight out of like Pinterest, gorgeous.
That was the goal. And that was honestly the extent of my training. So I planned out the tables. My husband put them together, and that was a lot easier than, and this is the thing with like my career, and then I think in general that people need to take away is if you can just do it, like you just got to do it. Like I'm not a carpenter. I did not hire a carpenter. Like we got an IKEA piece of wood. I got some Amazon legs. We put them together and now have a table. And then I just curated one theme. We launched February of 2021 for Valentine's Day. I launched literally one theme that had roses, pampas. It was a 2-seat table, so that required one table, 2 plates, 2 big plates, forks and spoons, some wine glasses, and we sold out an entire week of picnics the whole week of Valentine's Day.
That is so crazy.
And it was amazing.
What were some ideas for people that are listening that don't necessarily, because even though they could watch this on YouTube and there'll be a picture of either like a picture of a picnic or something like that. Keith will integrate it for you. But for people who are listening maybe and aren't watching this, I want to kind of describe like the ambiance and the setting for this and like what you could potentially use these picnics for. Like when your clients came to you, they were like, oh my gosh, yes, we want to do this.
Yeah.
Where would they do it?
So it's definitely a weird concept still. Like I have some people like in Dallas who are like, hell yeah, picnics. I'm so obsessed with them. And there's some people who are like, wait, what are you doing? So it's definitely like still a little bit new and niche. When I launched, I think I'd like to think that we are one of like 2 or 3 in Dallas.
Sure.
Now there's like, I can think of 15 businesses. So we're considered to be part of the luxury picnic business and industry. Yes.
Luxury.
At least that's what we're telling our customers. No. So it's basically an elevated picnic experience.
Sure.
So when you think of a traditional picnic, it's on a blanket with your basket, a baguette, some wine out in the grass with, your lover.
Sure.
And it's a super like French ambiance, like romantic thing. So what we did is we built tables. And so it's tables where you still sit on the ground, but at least your food is up on a table.
Okay.
You have, your fine dining, see, this is the thing. I'm like, I don't even know like the names, but I'm like utensils. So like we've got
chargers, we've got plates, we've got linens, we got everything.
Literally all of that. Wine glasses, water glasses, and then we have beautiful florals. And so it's just a really beautiful experience, but it's something that you can enjoy indoors or outdoors. And that's something that we're
cool.
So it's a year-round experience. So what we really wanted to do with our marketing and with our mission was create experiences for, couples, for girlfriends, for friends. And then our biggest, I think, what our biggest USP is, unique selling point is
for those listening.
yes, marketing, is that we can work with businesses. And so what I'm really trying to help, and this is a very new concept, so it's taking a lot of like fishing and like leading them there.
Right.
But for example, we did a influencer event with a interior design company. And so what we did is they have like vases, florals, rugs, pillows. So we curated a picnic using their inventory and hosted 40 influencers. And that created an exponential marketing opportunity for them. They had 40 influencers covering the picnic while getting all of their inventory in the shots. The influencers are now shopping their stuff. And then we created a picnic experience. Yeah. And that was all indoors, hosting 40 people. So the difference is people are sitting on the floor and they're on pillows and cushions and they're mingling, like, so it's a dining experience, but it's just
the whole thing is an experience for sure. Yeah.
And so it's just a little bit more intimate. And so we can do things like Kendra Scott has booked us to have a picnic at their grand opening. So people can take pictures with it. It can be a photo op. It can be a sip and shop where like that's an opportunity to just sit at a picnic and drink some wine while your friends are shopping.
Sure.
So it can really be leveraged in a ton of different ways. So to me, I'm like, it's a year round, can be used for anything kind of experience.
No brainer.
Yeah. And so it's a lot of fun. So we started out with the Valentine's Day picnics. And then we pivoted in the spring to have like a couple other themes. And then throughout the summer, we were doing 4 to 7 picnics a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
And it was hot out. So.
And it was really hot.
Yeah.
Like I was sweating. Perspiring.
No, I can't. So I'm like, TMI. I am a sweaty gal. Like,
oh, me too. I don't glisten.
Yeah.
I pour.
Yes.
It's disgusting.
Yes. Yeah. We've been to the gym together.
Yes,
like we share that, And these picnics, these tables are 50 pounds.
Girl,
like they
got
got
it in.
Yeah, they got to stay on the ground when it's windy.
Good thing you know proper form when you're lifting weights. You know
I
what
wish
I'm saying?
lifting a picnic table is a whole different. Like I threw my back out 3 times last summer, and I am 27.
You're like, this is ridiculous.
It was so bad, and so. Yeah, but I was sweating so much last summer that there'd be times where I had to have like rags like tucked into my sweater, like my tank top.
Yeah.
So that when I was bending over, setting up the table,
My sweat's not like dripping on the table. Literally. Let me wipe that up real quick. They're like, did you spill some water? No, that's my sweat.
And like, thank goodness we set up before the guests get there. But that was a very real thing. And I'm like, summer 2022 is, I have a team now.
It's going to come in hot.
I can control my sweating a bit better.
Okay. So speaking of your team, you have 4 companies.
Yes.
More.
Yeah.
Right. How the fuck do you do that?
I wonder the same thing. Because people ask me, and I'm like, I don't know, because I'm doing it. I very much am.
I'm grinding.
But I don't know how. Because things just get done. And I think I'm at a point where I've gotten very good I have a team, for one, but I'm also very good at time batching. So like today I did all picnic stuff. Like I did not touch my emails. I did not touch my marketing company. Picnics was today. And knowing that today was picnics, I batched a ton of work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then tomorrow. So the picnics aren't as time intensive. So I'm able to block like one day off a week for that. Not even
focus on it, right?
Yeah. Not even a full week. Full day.
The good part about the picnics is like it's logistics, right? You're like scheduling time, place.
Yeah.
You have the equipment. You know who you're going to send on which positions or which jobs, which locations, whatever. So it's like just working out all of that stuff.
Yeah. So to that point, streamlining has probably been how I survived because everything at this point with all the companies is streamlined. So as soon as I got the logistics down for the picnics of like, okay, how much are these things going to cost for us to profit? How much does this need to cost for me to send somebody to go do it?
Right.
How much am I paying people? How are they going to pick up the equipment? We have an offsite storage unit. They pick up from the storage. They go to the place. They take it to the storage. I pick it up. I take the dishes. I wash them, take it back to the storage. And so now knowing that, it is a matter of someone books it, someone gets assigned it, I now know when to pick something up, and it's just that simple at this point.
Okay.
So that very quickly, I was doing a lot of the picnics last summer while I was still figuring out like building things. We built so much shit last summer. I'm like part-time carpenter.
And that's the resume, no big deal.
Honestly, like project manager, I did not touch a drill. I can't be trusted. But now that we have the logistics and now that we have the processing and it's basically myself and my assistant. So I maybe spend 3 to 5 hours a week on the picnics. And that's typically for me, it's more so like brainstorming. So like I already have the themes for the rest of the year planned out. I already know exactly what they're going to look like. I have the mood boards. It's just a matter of planning out the actual inventory, ordering them, and then seeing what type of budget we have for that based on previous themes. And then she handles all of like, if somebody books, she gets it onto our team member's schedule, gets them all of the details. They know to go do it. And then she handles any questions that customers might have. So yeah.
So freaking cool.
Yeah. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, but it's like there are days where I'm like, whose idea was this?
Like, who came up with this?
Yes. I like asked my husband, I'm like, why did you let me do this? And he's like, are you kidding me?
He's like, listen, I can't tell you no. Don't pretend like
and
I
he's
can.
Like, and I tried.
Multiple times.
Yes. But then there's some days where I'm like, I'm a fucking badass. Mm-hmm. Like I did this.
Don't worry about me, guys. I got this. I'm handling
I'm
this
like, I'll be retiring by 30. Hell yeah. Like
3 more years, bitch. What's up?
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay. So the wheels are spinning in my mind. So what kind of events would someone book the picnic for, like aside from like your romantic night, right? Like let's say the range, right? You could do a 2-person picnic all the way up to 40. So that's your max right now.
Yeah. So cool. 40, and that's gonna stay our max. Like,
okay, cool.
Because
you want it to be the niche, like luxury.
Yeah.
That experience. You don't want it to be like a large party of 100 people.
Exactly.
We're not doing weddings here. Okay.
So I would love to do elopements and micro weddings.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would love to do a backyard wedding or an outdoor wedding. Something it's not small, but like something about that size.
Sure.
I want to not tip that line of event rentals.
Yep.
And that has been something that we've
makes
had to
sense.
really play with, because there's a similar company who I adore.
Yeah.
And I adore the girls who own it. And I think they do incredible things. But they own an event rental company that has picnics.
Got it.
And so they rent their picnic tables and rugs out, and people then provide their own plates, all of that. And that's beautiful and amazing. And they do extremely well. But we are picnics. And
you don't want to do that.
And we don't. I mean, I said never say never. I don't at this moment.
As of right now, today.
Yeah, as of 2022, we'll stick with what we're doing.
A micro wedding, though, that sounds cool.
Yeah, and we have like things like teepees, we have backdrops, we have balloon installations, charcuterie, wine. Like we have all these partners, and then some of it is in our inventory.
What about like food? Like, have you guys partnered with any like? Okay,
So we have a Frisco-based charcuterie business, and then we have a Dallas-based one. Both are Latina-owned.
Perfect.
And so it really streamlines it all together, where when somebody's booking their picnic, they can add on charcuterie.
Nice.
And depending on the location of the picnic, we'll then place the order, and then we'll pick it up or get it delivered and then bring it with the picnic. But we only do charcuterie and wine. And then our wine partner is a Black veteran-owned, woman-owned wine company based here in Dallas. And
Love it.
so all of our partners are females. Our balloon company is female-owned, but the same thing. We're like, they can place the order, we'll bring it with the picnic. So it is curated. It isn't just picnics.
Okay, perfect.
It's what I want it to be is like a high-end event,
Sure.
but a small scale. So keeping it intimate. So this can be something for anywhere from 2 to 40. But our average picnic sizes are about 12. So it's, an at-home party that you want, like that you have the budget to, get some balloons, to get some wine, to get some charcuterie for you and your girlfriends, or a baby shower, or a bridal
like
shower.
A shower. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of sweet 16s, which is so cute.
I bet.
I think in the beginning, we definitely catered to the audience of, like, it was a little bit on the, I don't want to say lower budget, but it was more so where like the picnic was the thing.
Sure.
So like they'd have a birthday party and the picnic was the extent of the party.
Sure.
I want to get us to a point with our pricing, with our add-ons, with our partners, to a point where the picnic is a part of the party.
Yeah.
And that they have, a bounce house. They've got charcuterie. They've got a DJ. They've got an ice cream machine. They got a coffee cart. Like I want to be in that side where people are planning these parties 3 to 6 months in advance. We're not getting booked the week before for an epic 16-year-old birthday party where it's just the picnic.
Sure.
And I love that. But I just really want to be in this higher end market of people who are going like balls to the wall with their parties.
So we just need to connect you with some people in Highland Park, basically. Is what you're saying.
That's where we're going.
So anybody listening in Highland Park, in HP, no big deal. Reach out to Valerie.
Some of these little people, like, come on. And that's the thing. Like out here on the north side, they really don't see these picnics.
Yeah.
Like every time I've done an event out here, they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "It's a picnic." They're like, "What do you mean it's a picnic?" And I'm like, what? Like, where have you been?
What's going? You don't know about us?
Or
I mean,
have
come
people
on.
being like, "Oh, my 16-year-old was talking about this," and I'm like, "Yes,
exactly.
Like, come on."
So how? And that brings up a good point, though. Is like what is your marketing strategy right now? Social, like all social promotions.
So we do a lot of social promotion. We do email marketing. We also do collaboration events. So like we worked with Kendra Scott in Plano. We've worked with Kendra Scott in Highland Village as well.
I was gonna say the one at the shops.
Yep. And then we've done a couple styled shoots with families in Little Elm, and that way it's, their friends.
That's cool.
And then we also are going to be a part of, in April, we're going to be a part of the Frisco ISD Community Family Business Fair.
More names. We need more names for that.
So I'll have my team there set up with a picnic, so that, and that has, apparently they have like 200 people come to this thing. So that'll put us in front of a ton of people.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Networking, all the networking.
Yeah.
So what about your other businesses? So I know, so how do you and I'm asking obviously for shameless promotion, so feel free to talk about yourself the entire time.
Yeah.
But not only that, but how, you're an entrepreneur. And for people who are not listening, Valerie actually was working for a company when you kind of made the decision, hey, I can do this for myself. Mm-hmm. And you made the decision, you shut that one door and then the window opened and then you've basically ran out the window.
Yeah, I'm talking like the plane door opened and everything.
I jumped out and I did a swan dive and now we're here.
Yes.
But so your other businesses, are you working 7 days a week? Are you working all day, every day? What does that look like for you? Because I mean, realistically managing 4 businesses, that sounds like to some people a nightmare. I mean, for me, I'd be like thriving, but like, you know.
Sometimes it feels like a nightmare and we cry. But I'm really proud to say that like 2022 has been my year. Like, and I wish I could tell you how,
Yeah.
But when I got back from England after Christmas, it was like, and I've even told my therapist, I'm like, I don't know what you did. I don't know what I did. A flip switched. Like, I work 5 days a week. I clock out at 5 or 6.
Look at you.
I do not work weekends. I do not check my emails after work. I have boundaries. I charge for my work,
Good
which I know
for
is like
you.
duh, but like
No, but it's really hard too. I think that people have an issue with like, I was actually helping out a friend, a girl who came on my podcast too. Her name's Tiffany. Her podcast is called Have Your Cake and Eat It Too, because that's her business name. She teaches people how to be bookkeepers for other companies. So that's her company. Well, I was on a call with her company today, and they were talking. It was like 30 business owners. And I was like blown away, because I'm like, oh my God, this mom of 5 is like teaching all of these women how to create their own $1 million businesses. And I'm like talking to all of them. But I was like, how can you, like, you guys have to do everything. Like, we were talking about hiring, firing, all of that, right? Because that's what I do, whatever. And I was just looking at all these women, and I'm like, what's your boundaries like? Do you work all day, every day? And most of them are like, you know, silently agreeing, because we're on a Zoom call, and they're like, yeah, you know, like, I never turn it off or whatever. But yeah, I mean, and at what point did you say like, hey man, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah.
I have to turn it off for myself, for like my mental health. Do you think that like going to England and then coming back, you were like, that was a nice break?
It was a combination of like having the relief of England and experiencing that. And we kind of talked about this before recording, but during quarantine, when COVID first started and happened, I was cloud 9. Like, that is the most, like, and I'm obviously privileged to say, like, I worked from home. I had my business. I controlled my schedule. My work is remote. Because we're a digital marketing agency, we actually grew a lot during the pandemic, because a lot of businesses had to pivot online.
Yep.
So we ended up growing. But because I wasn't doing photo or video shoots, my work was primarily remote.
Yeah.
And that eliminated the half of the business that is the most tedious and time consuming. And I was able to have super, super productive 5-hour work days. I was getting up, and this was also like COVID started in like March.
Sure.
And so the weather was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I was getting up at 7 a.m. I was walking 4 miles. I was listening to my podcast. I was coming home and stretching. I was having my green juice. Like, I was being like that girl.
Yeah.
And I would
Let's
work.
talk about that girl.
Oh, I freaking love that girl. And I would work 5 hours. I'd clock out of work. My husband was working from home as a soccer coach. So, I mean, he was doing Zoom sessions.
Trainings, yeah.
And so we were both like, and that's probably the first time in our lives where like our jobs have lined up. So then I'd end up having the evening to hang with him. And I was like, this is the life, man.
You're like, I love this.
This is so, and that's my first time having one job, because I was pre-picnics.
Yeah.
And I was pre-podcast. And so it was really, really nice. And I told him, I was like, my poor husband, I told him, I was like, do not let me forget this feeling.
Yeah.
I was like, do not let me change my work lifestyle when this pandemic, because obviously we didn't know how endless COVID was going to be.
Sure.
And I was like, don't let me go back to how I was. I was like, because this is incredible. And it was great for our marriage. I lost weight. I lost all the inflammation in my body from stress.
Stress, yes. I love being a girl. It's the best.
I know. Stress inflammation is like such like a emotional thing.
And it's like so hard to just let go of it. But then once you look back at
when you're
pictures of
4'11",
yourself,
man.
you're like, listen, 5 pounds looks like 20, okay?
Oh, traumatizing, let me tell you. And
don't look at those pictures. Just don't look at them.
Yeah. So the pandemic was going great. And then I obviously got bored towards the end of it. The end of it is not over. Towards the end of 2020. And that's when I started the picnics. And then when the picnics started to pick up, that's when people started to get a lot more comfortable doing things again. So then my photo shoots picked up.
Yeah.
And then the marketing business picked up. And then we were doing events. And then I had to hire. And then we got really busy last summer, where we had, more clients than ever. So I was having to hire a ton of people.
Yeah.
And I am very self-aware. Training is one of my weaknesses.
Same.
I not only hate it, but I'm terrible at it.
I'm just really bad at details. Like
I'm
remembering
phenomenal at details. I'm a very empathetic person, but I'm not good at explaining things. So like, if you don't get it, I can't help you. I'm like, I don't get what you don't get.
Yeah.
And
like the fuse is short. Okay. It doesn't last very long.
I'm a very impatient person too. So it's like, I'm just very aware, like training is not my thing. So like when we grew and got so big last summer, I had to hire people and I was having to train them. And that was a really difficult process for me because I was having to train 3 people at one time on different clients. And my entire companies are like based on independent contractors.
Yeah.
So I wasn't necessarily their priority. They weren't committing all of their time to like bettering their work with me.
Sure.
They were just trying to make, side money. And so the quality was dropping, which like when a company scales and grows, like of course the quality there has to be that give and take because you're growing and it's different people and there's the whole hiring process.
Growing pains.
Yeah. And I had never gone through hiring before.
Right.
And so I wasn't vetting people in the best way I could have. So I was getting people who would quit on me within a week because they'd be like, oh, this is actually too hard. Or actually, I didn't want to do this or, whatever it may have been. So like that was a whole like hit to my ego, but also a learning curve for me. I was like, shit, like
life lessons.
Yeah. And like, and you don't know it until you go through it. Like I didn't know I sucked at hiring until I had to start hiring. Like when was I supposed to learn that? And so last summer, things were fucking hard. Like we were the busiest we've ever been. We were making incredible money, but we were so stretched thin as a company that everyone was stressed. Everyone was unhappy and clients were becoming unhappy. And I am a people pleaser to the core.
Me too.
And so I was trying to accommodate and overcompensate where we were lacking. And so if something was sucking here, I would do more here. And I was stretching myself thin. And I'm paid the least in my company.
Exactly. You're like, I got to pay all these other people.
Yes. Yeah. And at that point I was like, I'm making like $1 an hour, if anything, and it was just so much. And so we ended up during the last quarter of last year losing a lot of our clientele to the point where for us to even survive, we were having to take on a ton of work that like I wouldn't usually take on because it wasn't aligned, but we needed to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And typically, like I vowed to myself when I started the business that I would not take on work that wasn't aligned, but that's different when you're solo, when you're a freelancer.
Exactly.
And so
that's different when you have bills to pay and people to pay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these people, I mean, my team, I'm not their primary source of income, but I'm a source of it.
Sure.
So I had to find work. So then last quarter, we were doing just a ton of work that we weren't aligned with. I was doing it at negotiated prices and I was just so burned out. And I know you were saying like, how like I told you, like it sounds dramatic and it's like it sounds so unhealthy, like how burnout feels, and I mean it is. But the only way I could describe it, even to like my therapist, was I feel ashamed saying this because it's like it sounds very morbid. I would almost hope that I would get in a car accident on the way to a photo shoot, and not in a suicidal way,
just so I could have a breakaway.
In a legitimate excuse way. I'm like, I won't give myself a break.
Right.
I'm the only one who can give myself a break because I'm the boss.
Yes.
I committed to this and I'm not going to not commit to it, even if it's meaning jeopardizing my mental health. So I would hope that something traumatic enough happens that I can have
I don't want to die. Just break a leg.
Yes. Something like just enough to where the client would exempt it, but that I wouldn't feel like I let them down.
Right.
And so,
just
tornado,
a freak of nature.
Yeah, just anything that's outside of me. And that's how bad it got. And I was telling my therapist, I'm like, this isn't normal, right?
What was your therapist saying about all this?
So, I mean, I've been going to therapy for years.
Chill the fuck out. Okay.
I mean, imagine. Okay.
Totally.
Yeah. I've been going to therapy for years. And like one of the biggest things I've been working on is my high standards for myself and how unrealistic my own expectations for myself are and how that ripples out into everybody around me and how I don't have a lot of grace for other people because I don't have grace for myself. And I've always been the person where it's like, I have very high expectations and standards for people, which I think is fine, but it would be to the extent of like, I won't give people room to be human
or fuck up.
Yeah. And if they do, it's like, that's it. And my reasoning would always be like, well, I wouldn't have done that. And she was like, well, she's like, you're also human. But my whole thing is like, I don't give myself that room. So if I fuck up, I mean, it's going to be a long talk with myself.
Which I'm sure that came from, and we talked about this on the last episode you were on, that came from like the immigrant mentality, like from your parents and like them owning businesses and all of those things. Like your mom was an immigrant, not your dad, but still like the fact that she came over here, busted her ass.
Yeah.
And like never took a break and always grinded and hustled.
She was
and
at
everything.
my picnic today working. Like,
yeah, you're like...
like and today was her day off.
And that
she's
was
out
your
here
example, like...
Yeah, and I mean, not to her fault, but like you see what hard work is. And I'm like, well, I want that. But now with lots of therapy, we have found
balance. We found balance.
Not even. We found a little bit deeper into like where this comes from. We found that it was actually lack of validation. Like while I was a child, and like my parents are freaking incredible. I come from an incredible household. There is no.
Well, and our parents do the best that they can with what they have, right?
Yes.
So we can't fault them for what they lack that they didn't know that they were lacking.
And one thing I've learned is that trauma, it doesn't have to be abuse. It doesn't have to be rape. It doesn't have to be, those are obviously.
Clearly.
But there are so many tiny things that morph us into the humans that we are. And one thing that really made an impact on me that I didn't know until recently was, I was the child who was overachieving. It was a very casual, it was like my quirk. It was like, which now looking back, I'm like, how fucking annoying am I? Like, I'm that child.
Oh my God, I was that kid.
I can't even tell you, like, I still am.
And because you carry the burden so well, right? that your parents...
Self-deprecating humor.
Yeah, exactly. I talk a lot of shit about myself. But it's like you carried that burden so well that your parents don't think that, well, maybe...
It doesn't seem negative.
And they don't understand that you need that validation.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're the high performer. Well, you're our high performer. Like, that's just who you are. That's just the type of person that you are.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
And so that's like
my
basically...
parents did the same shit to me.
Yeah. And so
I'm like, guys, but I still need you to tell me that I'm doing a good job.
Right. And that almost doesn't make sense because you're like, well, that's validating that they expect it from you because that's who you are. But it's not, as a child, you need that you're literal verbal validation.
Like you're becoming the adult version of yourself, right?
And I can think like of a perfect example, and like, I hope my dad never hears this because he would be like, he'd feel
Dad, don't listen, turn it off.
Honestly,
Fast
he'd feel
forward 30 seconds.
He would feel so sorry for like the rest of his life. But like, I remember one time I got B's on my report card, and that was like, I was in my room crying over my B's.
Yeah.
And this is also considering that I skipped 4th grade. So I was already a year and a half younger
no big deal.
than everyone in private school. So like I was doing just fine academically, but I got B's in my report card. And I remember my dad came in, and it was just one of those, my parents like never had to push me academically or in anything.
You always push yourself.
Yeah. And like my brother was the one they had to push. So like they were just glad they had one kid that did it on their own. And I remember my dad came in, and they were just always lax about it. And I was maybe like 10 years old. And my dad was like, oh, well, better try harder next time and get A's. And like, it was one of those where he was kidding.
Right. Totally.
And I knew he was kidding.
But still.
But I was having a mental breakdown. And so I was like, my
At
dad.
10.
Yeah. And so my mom like made him come back in and apologize. And he's like, it's okay. Like, you're doing great, blah, blah, blah. And so like, that's just an example of like, it was just a joke, because if I did bad, it was like, well, good. Like, do bad at something. Damn. Right. Like, and so, and like looking back, that's fine. Like I look back and I'm like, that's probably how I would react too.
Right.
Totally. And like now as an adult, I'm like, oh, they never really told me like, oh, you're doing a great job, or like, oh, you don't need to do any more.
Right.
And I did a million extracurriculars. I did a million extra classes. I taught myself the school curriculum over the summer so that school would be easy for me. Like, who does that? And this was as a child. So, and like,
that's next level shit.
Yeah. So like, that was my quirky little thing. But to circle back to the point, was that I got to that point last fall where I felt like that was how bad I was feeling. Like if I was driving to a meeting or a photo shoot, I was hoping for some like, horrible circumstance that would give me a valid reason to not work at that time, because I was at a point where like I had no more capacity. And that's like when I realized, I'm like, oh, I'm at capacity, but it is literally me not giving myself the room.
Yeah.
And
You're like, I'm displaying toxic behavior.
Yes.
I need to check myself.
Yeah. And it's like a running joke in my house where like, I'd be like, the boss is a bitch, man. Like, she will not let me take a day off. And it's like, that's what it was.
You're like, am I though? Chill out, bro.
Yeah.
Give yourself a day off. Give yourself a day.
And like my husband always say like, oh, ask the boss if you can get like a 3-day weekend. And I'm like, she's a stickler, no. Man.
Sorry,
like,
man.
She's counting these hours. Like, that's the thing is like, I wouldn't do it. And I got myself into this cycle, which I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs do, and especially business owners, where there's always things that can be done.
Yes.
So if I had a busy week, I'd be like, okay, we'll push that to next week. And then next week would be like, next week would eventually arrive.
Right.
And then it'd be like, oh, push that to next week. And so then every single week was busy. So then I had this point where I was like, okay, well, I just need to get through this week. Okay, I just need to get through this month. Okay, I just need to get through this quarter. Okay, I just need to get through the year. And it was like there was no end in sight.
Yeah.
So then when I had these moments of driving to photo shoots and hoping that I get in a car accident, I would think like, there is no end in sight. Like, this is not going to stop. And then I started to think, like, do I even want any of this?
Right.
Like, do I want to work at all? Do I want to have my own business? And then it really made me lose sight of anything that I'm doing and my why.
And like why you started in the first place.
Yeah, because I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like,
Right.
this is way worse.
This shit is whack. This is not what I wanted.
Like, I'm making
I would
no
love
pay.
to clock out. Like, that would be great. PTO, what the fuck
Like,
is
I'm
that?
paying myself practically nothing. I have zero benefits. I am barely like making it through the day, like eating any sort of food.
Yeah.
I'm surviving off espresso. Like, and so it was all those things. And I'm like, what is even the perk of like being a business owner? And that was one thing my therapist said is like, well, what were the perks when you started it? And I had to remind myself, like, I want to be able to travel with my husband and travel for like, not just, 2 weeks of PTO. I want to go for a month. I want to go for 2 months.
Right.
I want to eventually go for 6 months.
Right.
Or a year, move wherever. Like, I want to be able to have lunch with my husband in the middle of the day. I want to be able to work from home with my puppies. Like,
Yes.
and like, those are such tiny things I started to take for granted.
Yeah, I'm looking up a picture because I saw this today and it reminded me of it. But keep going.
And it's so easy to take those things for granted and to not let yourself enjoy them. So I got to a point in the business where I wasn't even allowing myself to enjoy the perks I had in the business. And I'm making, like any business owner knows, like, you're taking a pay cut when you quit your job. And so I'm like, well, then why am I, what the fuck?
Right.
Like,
what am I doing this for?
Make it make sense.
This is what I saw today. Angie Lee posted this. It says, I don't want to be a, quote, girl boss. I want to love my career, but never miss dinner with my family. I want to be a mom first, an entrepreneur second. I want to be at every basketball game and recital. I want to inspire thousands of women, but most importantly, my kids. I want to be present for date nights with my husband. I want to travel. I want to put my health before my work. I don't want to hustle 24/7. I want freedom.
Yes.
And that's what you want. Like, that's why you started your own business. So you can say, fuck it to the man.
Literally.
But now you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I am the man.
Fuck you, man. Literally. And it's such a fine line. And I feel like so many of those things are kind of like, well, duh, you need time off. Well, duh, you filled up your schedule. But it's
You're
like,
yeah, that's easy to say when you're not running 4 fucking businesses.
and you're in survival mode. And you're
Right.
like, if I don't do this, these people won't be able to have work. If I don't do this, I won't get paid. If we lose this
it's
client.
a whole new game when people report to you for their income.
And even though they're not my main source, like, I don't want to let anybody down,
Right.
my clients or my team. And like, I started what I started for the sake of giving people jobs and paying women well
Yes.
for what they do. And so for me to like, I'm not going to ever negotiate their pay. So then if there was times where I'm like not getting paid, I'm like, well, I'm paying you.
Right.
And
You would eat it.
Yep.
Yep.
And literally, or I wish literally.
Or I wouldn't.
I would not.
There's a lack of food there.
So it was just a catastrophic, like just epiphany last fall where I was like, okay, this has got to change because I'm about to get a corporate job. And I started looking and applying for jobs and I was like, and then I'm sitting there applying for these jobs and I'm like, I already know that day one, when I have to get up and put normal clothes on and drive in traffic
And
to an office.
Somebody else's bullshit.
And have somebody telling me how to do what I've been doing. Like, no.
You're like, that's not going to work.
Or if I get like a migraine, I'm like, I'm not going into work.
No.
I'm not calling in sick though. And I'm like, no. I would like to potato on the couch until noon when I then clock in.
Yes.
And
then I'll work till 9.
Yeah.
But like I'm staying on the couch till noon.
Yes. And so it was just like I had that epiphany. And like I'm one of those people where like if I'm going to learn something, I'm going to learn it the hardest way possible. And
Me too.
Going like hitting that breaking point and then going to England. And even then like I had a team member quit the week before I left for England. And I was like, fuck.
Right.
And she was like one of my most important team members and someone I was also closest to. And having to like handle that and then leave the country, prep our current clients for the holidays, and which in general is stressful because people are like everyone goes into panic after Thanksgiving.
Of course.
It's immediate anxiety around
Right.
like Christmas that's here. And so it was like dealing with that. And then we have to prep for January before Christmas because between Christmas and New Year's, it's just, that
A
gray
shit show.
period. Yeah. Of like Like everything
What's
just stops.
going on?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
It's like existentialism. And so it was just a tough time. So then when I got to England and I was taking time with family, and like the time zone, like the time difference does wonders for me, because it really puts into perspective. Like, I do social media. This is not brain surgery. This is not, we're not firemen here. It is not life or death. It can wait 6 hours. It can wait till tomorrow. So having that forced on me for the 4 weeks that we were there, and then getting COVID, and then realizing like, everyone can wait.
Yeah.
Like everyone.
Yeah.
And then getting COVID and not being able to come home for an extra 10 days, and then not being able to like kick the year off with new goals because I was in England having COVID indefinitely, not knowing when in January I was going to come home. And now it's mid-January. I haven't had a kickoff meeting. I haven't had a chance to reset my goals and put them on my fucking board. And I was just like, none of this fucking matters.
No.
None of it.
It'll be okay.
All of it. And so then I came home. And like that just stuck. So now I get emails. I'm like, that could wait. And like, I'm a very all or nothing person. And I feel like if anything, I took like the all or nothing. Like, I'm just like all on the other side of the spectrum now, where like I get somebody trying to call me today and I'm like,
no,
I'm available tomorrow.
Right.
Like, you can check my schedule.
We can move that.
And
right.
like, and last year, like even I had somebody the other day, like I gave them my scheduler, and I don't take calls Monday, Fridays, because that's my days to like actually get shit done. And then, so it was like a Thursday. So my next available call, I was booked all day Tuesday. So it was like Wednesday, still less than a week away.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, I really need to squeeze in a 5-minute call. Can it just be 5 minutes? And I was like, check my scheduler. And
you can wait until Wednesday.
Yeah. And I'm like, and this is,
if it's really that important, send me an email.
Yes. And it can wait. Because anytime last year, that would have been like, okay, if it's 5 minutes, I can do it. And then I would do
but
it.
Then 5 turns into 25, and then 25 turns into 45.
And then I end up on a day of calls on my day that I'm not supposed to have calls.
Right.
And then it would turn out that none of it was actually urgent, because they felt like it was urgent because they felt like they needed to get clarity. And so they would just kind of pass that on to me.
Yes.
So then it would turn out that like somebody trying to book a photo shoot doesn't actually have any vision for it yet. They were just going to talk it through with me. So then me forcing them to wait till Wednesday, they then come to me. I've had people email being like, oh, actually, after I thought about it, I realized I'm not super sure on what I want. So let's revisit in 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, cool.
Oh, yeah. Look at you. Look at those
Yes.
boundaries. You're not even 30 yet, bro. This is like
It is painful though, man. I was like telling my friend, I was like, I feel like therapy is like sometimes I wish I could just choose ignorance is bliss.
Dude, same.
Because like,
I wish I was stupid some days.
yes.
Because I could live there.
Yeah.
I could work at Walmart
It's like we know
and
too
be
much.
cool and then go home and be fine with it.
Trader Joe's is my choice. I'm like, I
Trader
would
Joe's.
work at Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's. Aldi. Fuck it. Aldi. Same company. Different
Yeah.
names. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I could do that and then just go home and be cool with it. But
Yeah.
I can't. I can't do that now.
I know. It's just we know
It's
too
a gift
much.
and a curse.
It is. And me being so aware of my lack of boundaries created more anxiety, because I was like, I know I'm breaking my boundary in this moment. And then it would create guilt. And then I would be like, well, I know I'm not doing anything about it either. And then I would feel
And then
the
that's more
burnout.
guilt, and then we just add it all up.
Yes. So now this year I have like, it's like it clicked where I was so present and like really felt the burnout, that now when someone's emailing me that and I'm like, you can check my schedule, and they're like, oh, can I squeeze in a 5-minute call? I can sit there and think like, because I know what's going to happen.
No.
Like, I'm going to have a day
We cannot.
and I'm going to cry. And so I'm like, no.
And then my husband's going to feel the pain, and then our relationship's going to take a strain, so I can't do this.
And then therapy is going to cost more, and then the financial stress, and then it's and so it was really it's been so much easier for me this year. And
Good for you. I will say you have matured in the time that it's been since I've seen you. And I don't mean like you look older. I mean, you look like you've really grown into your skin.
Thank you.
Which is a very good thing, because then I know that this is the person that you're showing up to when you're talking to your clients, and like no one's pushing you around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for me. It was, I felt,
Well, you were 25?
yeah, and I was 23 when I started the business.
Bro.
And it's just, it was hard, because like I felt like people, it was kind of a joke where people would be like, oh, like being around you makes me anxious. And it was like, because I would be so like cracked out all the time, and like literally on caffeine and anxiety. And like now people are like, you just seem so chill. And I'm like, thank you.
Zen. Yeah, it's true.
And like, I almost feel like there's less happening in my brain. Like,
Just also nice.
yes, like
Because
less
you've
overthinking.
compartmentalized everything.
Yep. And it's like and I literally told my therapist, I'm like, I almost feel like depressed, because I felt like used to be so much in my brain, and now, and like that was
She's like, this is called peace.
Yeah. And she said, like, there's a very fine line of like recovering from anxiety, and there's a very fine, like, small gap when you have to fill that space with something else, because it can become depression.
Sure.
And I don't feel like people talk about this, because everyone's just kind of like, you need to get rid of your anxiety and stress. You need to get rid of it. Then I get rid of it, and
You're
I'm
like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now?
and I'm having an identity crisis because I'm like,
who am I now?
Literally. And it's like, you don't realize how driving anxiety is. So I told her, I was like, I don't feel like I have, like, I was like, it's not a joke, but I was telling her, like, I have no will to live. Like, I don't have anything to like pushing me to work anymore, because, and I was like, why, what am I working for? Cause like, I don't care that much about the money.
Yeah.
Like, I've got the freedom now. And I'm like, so how am I supposed to get up in
Where's
the morning and be productive?
What's the motivator?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she was like, anxiety, some people live, and I'm like, I have, like, that has been like, what, since I was like 8?
Seriously.
Like when I skipped 4th grade? Like, I was like, so what am I supposed to do now?
Who am I?
Literally. And I was like, and I asked my husband, because he is like so opposite from me.
I know.
Like, has never overthought in his
Crazy.
life, has never experienced anxiety. And I'm like, what happens in your brain? And like, it's always been a running joke
He's
in our
like, well,
marriage.
right now I'm thinking about breakfast, but other than that, pretty good.
Well, it's always a joke that he has like the monkey clapping in his brain.
Yeah.
And like when I tell him that, he goes, monkey's angry. And because he's just like, he's very ADHD.
But how perfect is that though? That's the balance, right?
Now it's seeming more perfect.
Could you imagine him being as anxious as you were?
We would actually combust.
Yeah.
Like,
You're like, not only that, but my marriage would probably be in the trash.
and like, there's been times where it's been in the trash because of our, like, us being
Yeah.
so opposite, where I was trying to pull him into my darkness and he was trying to pull me into the light. And like, it's just chaos. And now it's truly like, oh, so this is why, like, when you leave work, you're able to just like
Leave work.
I know. And I'm like, wow.
My husband doesn't even have his work email on his phone.
My husband uses his personal email. I'm like, does that not make you like actually insane? I know. Doesn't that give you anxiety? And he'll get an email. It'll be like, because he coaches in the evenings, he'll get like a text from a parent at like 10 being like, can you give me a call? And he'll just not reply until the next day.
Dude.
And I'm like, are you not worried about what they want to say?
He has the biggest balls of anyone I've ever heard.
And he's just like, I mean,
don't
yeah,
care.
I'm curious, but I mean, it can wait till tomorrow. I'm like, are you going to be able to sleep tonight? Because I can't.
You're not going to be rolling over in your freaking dreams. You're not going to wake up at 2:30 in the morning thinking about what that parent wants to talk about.
I'm like, you're not going to analyze everything that you've ever said to them and their child. Like, I'm like, should we do this together? Like, I can get the spreadsheets out.
Do you want me to talk you through it? We can role play. Let's role play.
Do you want me to help you?
He's like,
You seem anxious.
I
Let's
didn't even
talk.
have a problem. Why are you making this into something bigger?
Literally.
Yeah. That's so crazy. That's how Matt and I are. Yeah. So since I saw you last, I met
And got engaged?
and we're married.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So we eloped in 2020
I'm a big advocate of eloping.
for sure. It cost us like $30.
Yeah.
But we eloped because I was going through a custody battle with Chloe's dad.
Oh.
So, and during the custody battle, Matt was like, listen, I know that ultimately I want to marry you. And we weren't even engaged. I didn't have a ring or anything.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was like, I know I want to marry you, so we need to do this for your kid. So we did it.
Aw.
And then before we went to Florida last year, he proposed and like wanted to do it
Aw, I love
formally and all
that.
that. Yeah, but technically on paper we're married.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the yin and yang of that relationship is just absolutely insane. But he sees things like your husband, like
Logistically.
doesn't check his email after 5, shuts his laptop, doesn't check his phone, like all of that can wait until 8 a.m. in the next. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but I can't go to bed unless I check my email. What are you
Literally.
talking about? Like everything, constantly working all the time, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we've had to do some therapy around it too, because for a while I thought there was something wrong with him. I was like, why doesn't he care? Like, is he lazy? Like, is he, and he's not. Like, he's incredible at his job.
Yeah.
He does extremely well in his company. He is constantly growing in his company, and that's what I couldn't understand is like, to him, he's like, is that not enough? Like, damn, like
Right.
I'm great at my job. I
Right.
love my job. I just clock out after it.
Right.
And I'm like, but you have all this free time. Like, don't you want to like monetize your hobbies? Like, let's do something with your free time.
Come on, grind away.
And because he has a kind of job that allows him to work 20 hours a week. And I can't imagine
So nice.
that lifestyle.
God.
I mean, we say that, but I'm like, if we had that time,
But
we'd
my
be-
husband would take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
He wants to start a freaking landscaping company. Let's call it Matt's Mowing.
Oh.
He wants to go mow all the yards in our neighborhood, charge like $20.
That's the thing.
He
So,
would
like,
be happy as a clam.
if we had the time, like, I'd freaking start a picnic business in my free time. So, like, but to see my husband, like, wanting to play video games during the day and, like,
Right.
wanting to take an afternoon nap with our puppy every day, I'm like,
we're married to the same man.
yeah, I'm like, what?
But like how, like, wait, like that's how it works for you? Yes, this is how it works for you. This is how my brain works for me. I'm like,
Yes.
okay.
And like we
All right.
always joke that that he is stuck in the rose bush smelling the roses and that I've never seen a rose. And so we had to like do a lot
Stop. I can't stop. I can't stop and smell anything.
What the
Are you
fucking
kidding me?
rose? Who needs the roses? And then there's like a meme that says it's like type A and type B. And the type A is like, oh, you want me to smell the roses? I'll stop and smell the roses. I'll win the competition of smelling roses. And he's like holding a trophy and like all these roses.
That's me.
Like,
That's
I
me.
am the best smelling.
That's
I'm the best smeller of roses there is.
Yeah, man.
But therapy helps.
That's
so if anyone out there is like, I don't care what your problem is, like go to therapy.
Seriously, and that's a shameless plug for my sponsor. So if you do need a therapist, betterhelp.com/BGP. Thank you if you needed it, because I definitely need it and use it all the time.
Everyone needs it.
Every week.
Yep.
Me and my therapist are like
Honestly.
besties.
Yeah. No, I'm obsessed with my therapist too. Like one of my friends is a therapist, and she said that sometimes when her patients she feels like they no longer need therapy, she graduates them.
Yeah.
And I was like, excuse me? I was like, is there a chance of my therapist leaving me?
I'm sorry, when does that happen? Because I need to know.
And she said that some people will come up with issues because they want to continue therapy. I'm like, I've got a list of ideas, man. I'm ready.
Don't worry, I can't run out because we're booked. We're booked through 2025. We're good.
Well, that's the funny thing too, is my husband, our therapist requires that if you do couple sessions, you have to also do individuals, because a lot of your marital issues come from individual issues that are deep rooted. So I come to my sessions with like an agenda.
Yes.
And like I have to keep the small talk to a minimum. It's like, hi, how are you? How are you? Okay, good. Let's get started.
Next.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then with my husband, he says that they don't get into it for like the first 30 minutes of his 45-minute appointment. He goes, and then we get into it because I don't really know what to talk about.
Oh my God, I couldn't imagine.
And I'm like, you're wasting our money.
That would
get to the
stress
point.
me out. The first thing I say to my therapist, I'm like, hi, how are you? She's like, I'm great. Thank you for asking. And then I'm like, okay, these are the issues that I have. We need to address them right now.
Literally. I have to like prioritize too. I'm like, okay,
what's my most important? What do I need to address first? Because if I don't get to that, then I'm going to think about it for the next week until I have my next session.
Yep.
It's overwhelming.
It's normal.
It's overwhelming in here. It's just too much. Yeah, I started going to therapy like regularly. I should have gone to therapy way before this, but I really prioritized it after my dad died. And then from there, like I noticed, and I put this on my Instagram story not that long ago, but like when you start dumping on your friends emotionally and you start talking about all your shit to your friends, that's when you know you need therapy. Mm-hmm. Like if you're questioning whether or not you need to take it to the next step and talk to a professional about the things that are going on in your mind, like talk to your friends. Mm-hmm. Hey, am I like burdening you with all this shit going on in my life, or all my insecurities or like my problems with dating or whatever the fuck it is? Like if I am, then you need to tell me and I need to go talk to somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, and cut out going out to dinner one night a week or whatever, and prioritize therapy, because oh my God, it's such a weight lifted. Like
it really is.
And I don't find myself calling my friends and telling them about my problems because I have somebody that's designated to talk to about them.
And it's so much easier too, because like you can talk to your friends all day, but they're obviously going to give you the best advice they can.
Of course.
But it's biased.
Yes, because they're your friends.
Yeah,
yes.
And they just want to say positive things. Like they're not going to like stick it to you. But with my husband, he was really a little bit reluctant to go to therapy because it's just obviously for men, it's not normalized, but especially from England, like mental health and especially for men is not normalized. And at first he was like, I don't really want to go. Like, and he doesn't like, he's very well aware that I talk to my mom about him. I talk to my friends about him. Like I'll happen to be talking to you about him. Like if we have a problem, there's people that know.
That's me too.
And
man.
For him, he doesn't vent to anybody.
Same.
Anybody.
Matt doesn't even talk to his family.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk to his parents.
Yeah.
I'm like, you haven't talked to your parents this?
I'm like, one day you're going to snap.
I told the neighbor this.
Literally. I'm like, the lady at CVS, she knows. And with him, I'm just like, but where does it go? And I'm like, one day you're going to snap and like, drive us off a cliff.
But, and that's where like their outlet is like the video games or whatever the case may be, right? Like that's like, it's so funny. We monitor our sleep, like on our watches or whatever. We have the sleep app. When my husband plays video games, like first person shooter games, he gets the best sleep because he's like de-stressed. He's like killing people in the brush or whatever the fuck it is they're doing on these games. That's when he gets the best sleep because he's like, let it all out.
Yeah.
But he doesn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where does it go? So now that he's like talking to therapists, he's like, it's really nice to be able to, because he said there's times where like he's much more patient than I am and much less irritable. Like I don't think there's anything that could possibly ever annoy my husband. Well, me, I have a
look at me
ongoing
sideways.
list.
Look at me sideways.
Literally.
See what happens.
Yes. Like it can just be like my blinker. Like and
that's enough.
Yeah. And with him, he says that like there's times that like because we're so different and our communication styles are very different and we're still young and like we're still learning each other and ourselves, like there's a lot of communication barriers.
Yeah.
And he said that it's nice to be able to have somebody to kind of like do a practice run of conversation. So he can either talk it through with somebody and then realize like, oh, it doesn't need to be a conversation at all.
Yeah.
Or come to me with a better conversation than he probably would have based on his communication style, since she knows both of ours. And then it's also like him learning like my love languages and my communication style so that he can come to me and we actually have get through to each other. And that was one thing like during quarantine we realized like, although I was having the time of my life, we also were around each other so much more.
All the time.
In a 600 square foot apartment.
Right.
And he was working from home and I was working from home. And we're very much the kind of people like that can hang out all the time. But we started getting into these fights because I would be communicating how I feel. Like we're both extremely honest. So, like there's no holding back in our conversations. And not that it's like violently mean or anything, but it's
direct.
It's very direct and like, but it would get to the point where I'm like, I'm saying exactly how I feel, but you don't get how I feel.
Yes.
And he's like, well, I'm literally saying what I think and you don't seem to get it. And so I'm like, how can we both be so honest and so open and talk all the time and nothing.
And not communicate.
Yes. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, where's it going? Like,
Right.
what is happening?
Why are we hitting this wall when I'm literally telling you what I need or how I feel and you're literally telling me the same? We literally can't come on the same page.
Yes.
It's like my life. You're just describing my life. Okay. It's really great. I love it.
Therapy. #therapy is cool.
#therapy is the fucking best. Okay. It's required in days like this.
Truly.
So we talked about burnout. I know we want to talk about your new business. Okay, let's talk about your new podcast.
Yes.
Let's get to that too, because I definitely want to touch on that and I want to promote. So you have You Glow Girl, which is your already existing podcast.
Yes.
And that's just like fun outlet for you, or what's the theme of that podcast?
So
because mine has no theme. This is just a shit show.
Yeah, so ours, I mean, now that you say theme, I'm like, what is this? What's the theme?
People ask me that shit all the time. They're like, what's the category? I'm like, lifestyle, man.
Yes.
Like,
So I would say it's a lifestyle
Right.
podcast. It was very much like, so a lot of the women I work with Lumos Creative are aligned with my values. And so I'm, radically liberal. I'm very progressive. I'm very sexually,
explorative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
talk
to an
about
extent.
it. Yeah.
But yeah, very comfortable with my sexuality, comfortable with sexual free liberation.
Yes.
I'm very feminist, like all of these things. So, and I share that with a lot of my clients in the marketing agency, but I can only share so much because we're still in a professional environment.
Sure.
And so I wanted to have an outlet for all of these passions of mine for me to share with more women without having to necessarily work with them.
Yep.
And so I created that podcast where I could talk with professionals about what they do. So like we've interviewed with sex therapists, with vegan experts, with eco-friendly sustainability experts. So people like that, where it's just all around, like for women who are similar to me.
Yeah.
It's just sharing more educational resources
And like your passions, like these are things that you're passionate about. That's like when people ask me like, oh, your podcast, like what is it? Like what's it about? And I'm like, it's my passion project.
Yeah.
Like I'm interested in so many other things outside of what I just do for a living.
Right.
Like that's
and that was
why.
what it was. It
Right.
was like the multifaceted part of me where it's like,
I just have so many sides.
Yeah.
I just have to talk about all
I'm
of
great
them.
at everything. So that's what it was. So it's a creative outlet for me. I haven't kept up with it as consistently as I'd like because I decided to start 17 businesses.
Life happens, man.
Yeah.
Life happens.
Yeah. So now it's becoming a lot more. So I was actually thinking about like letting it just slip into the back burner, which was a huge thing for me because I've never just dropped something.
Let something go.
Yeah. And so I was having to like have real conversations with myself. Like, am I letting this go because I don't think it's doing well? Am I letting this go because I genuinely do not have the time, which is fine?
Right.
Or am I letting this go because I like for like subconscious reasons, you know?
Right.
And I ended up over Christmas getting a really nice message from a girl saying like, I just binged all of your episodes. Like everything, I relate to it so much. Like it's done so much for me, like hearing my story of like how I've dealt with anxiety and perfectionism in my business journey.
Yeah.
And that's something something that like for me talking about it, I'm like, no one else is talking about this.
Exactly.
And I don't feel like people prepare you, because I probably would have thought twice before starting my businesses had I known it would be this hard.
Right.
And I feel like there's so many, I feel like when I started my business, there was this big wave of people just quitting their jobs and starting businesses.
Yeah.
And I think it was all like people inspiring us, but then no one telling us how hard it is.
But that's what I'm saying. It's so glamorized. Like this whole girl boss, like the hustle culture,
Yep.
like, a girl CEO, whatever the case may be, like, it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
You're working all the time. Like, and
Yep.
that's why I basically wanted to talk to you all around the boundaries and the things that you've done to really implement some more structure in your life, because that is the appeal of a 9-to-5 is like, you do get to say, I'm putting my phone down.
Yeah.
Even in like, I'm in sales. So like before I go to bed, I check my email, because if I wake up in the morning and there's a 911, I really don't want to wake up and see that first thing.
Right.
I may not address it. I may not respond to that email.
At least
but like,
you know it's there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and for people who don't understand that side of it, of the business ownership side and the entrepreneur side, like, it's a roller coaster.
It is. And it does have its glamorous perks.
Sure.
But only if you allow yourself to have those perks, and you can only do so by setting boundaries.
Right.
And if you can't set boundaries, then it becomes
And
a
who
mental
the fuck
breakdown.
is talking about that?
Right. And
You
it's
know?
like, and it's, people are all saying like, what are your boundaries? Like, what are your boundaries? What the fuck are boundaries?
Right.
Like, and so like
Who made this boundary thing?
right.
Like,
And it's kind of like content, where people are like, what is content?
Right.
And it's like, it's very ambiguous. And so for me, boundaries was establishing like, okay, what is my ideal? So therapy has helped for sure. And like, for me, it was establishing what is my ideal work-life balance. Like, in my perfect world, in my that girl life, what does that look like for me?
Sure.
And for me, it was, I do want to be the person that gets up at 6 or 7 a.m. and goes and works out. I want to go and walk my dogs in the morning. I want to have a nice breakfast with my husband before I work.
Yep.
I want to sit down to work and then have a productive 5 hours of work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what time. Like, for me, I usually start work at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, okay, start at 10, have at some point lunch, and then have a productive 5 hours of work. If I go a little over, it's fine. But I want to be able to walk my dogs in the evening at sunset.
Yep.
And then I want to be able to watch some fucking TV
with my husband or by myself or whatever.
before he comes home from work.
Right.
And on the weekends, I want to go with my husband to his work. I want to be able to grab bagels with him on the way to his game.
Right.
And like, I don't want to be stressed. And that was a big thing, was like, I want to be able to do all of that without feeling paralyzed.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, what do I...
Or without feeling like you're literally attached to your phone.
Yes.
You're like chained to it.
Yeah.
And you can't move from it, and you're literally on it the entire time. So you're not enjoying any of those things anyway.
Literally.
Right.
And so we had to like, what's it called? Like reverse deconstruct? I don't know. Reverse, I don't know the phrase.
Prioritize.
Yeah, like
eliminate some things from the list.
Well, I had to basically work backwards and like, okay, how the fuck am I going to get there? Because there's a point where I was like, okay, that sounds nice, but okay.
In a perfect world.
Yeah, in the movies. And I realized like, okay, for me, it's, I do not take calls, meetings, or shoots on Mondays and Fridays. Those are my days to actually get my work done, because I still do a lot of the hands-on services still. Like, I still do a lot of the photography, the video, and I need to edit. And for me, the best way for me to edit is blocking it off in a big chunk. Like, I don't edit little by little by little. I usually edit an entire project in one day.
I was going to say, like, in calendar blocking, like, you're actually, and you're staying true to that calendar blocking. Like, you're not like, oh, yeah, I'll do this in that time. And then just like putting it off till next week, like you said earlier.
Yeah. And so for me, like, having our CRM where like I can literally put in the calendar that I do not take.
What CRM are you using?
Dubsado.
Okay. Do you like it?
Love.
Okay.
Dubsado has saved my life in many ways. So it allows me to be able to make myself unavailable for calls on Mondays and Fridays.
Nice.
And then on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, those are my days to take meetings, calls, or shoots. The team only takes shoots Wednesday through Saturday. If it's a Friday or Saturday shoot, I am not on it, because Friday's my no shoot, no call, no meeting day. Saturdays I am now off. So my assistant shooter goes and shoots on Fridays and Saturdays.
Nice.
If it's a project that I want to be on, I will let myself be on it, because that's the point.
Right.
Like, if I really love the business, I will go do it. And so like having that structure in itself really helped me to like not only be productive, because I also knew like, so a day like today when I had to be out on a picnic all day and couldn't touch my emails, I know I'm going to have a super productive day tomorrow because I don't have calls or meetings.
Yeah.
And so it's that's in itself has really helped me. And like, that's one of my boundaries, but then it's also enforcing that. So like, if somebody says, oh, can I squeeze in a call with you tomorrow?
No.
it's a no.
Check my calendar.
So one of my clients tomorrow is having an urgent call with their manufacturer who's in Italy. So they're having a call at 7:30 in the morning. And I told them, I was like, sorry, I can't be on it. And that's it. That was my explanation. I'm not available.
And that's it.
And it's because I'm going to be
like mic drop from there.
Yeah. And I will be sitting on my couch having coffee.
With my husband.
With my husband, because I don't start work until 10. And that's it. And that's all I owed them.
Right.
While a year ago, I would have either made it happen or had to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I have 75,000 things. And
No,
there's a
you
cat
don't
in the
have
tree
to. You don't have to keep talking. You don't. Literally. I'm not available.
Yep.
And then you walk away.
And you'd be surprised at how many people are okay with that. Like, people will just be like, okay. And I'm like,
they respect it because they have boundaries.
Yeah. And that's when you also know, that's how you can also enforce your boundaries. Anybody who doesn't respect your boundary is not somebody you want to be working with.
Well, and people that like work with you that like think that they can just text you and then get on a call with you like immediately. Like, if it's a 911, if something absolutely dire,
which nothing is in my business, which I've learned. So like, that's not even allowed anymore because I'm like,
it's
you
not
may think
that
it's a
important.
911,
right?
It is not.
Your lack of planning is not my emergency. If something happened, your employee gets hit in a car accident on the way to a picnic, that's a 911. That's something that I can understand.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or for me, I had somebody start on Monday and then he quit this morning. Like, he'd been there for 3 days. That's a 911 for me. I probably need to address that.
Right.
But like, outside of that, like I had someone try to call me today at like 2:00. And I was literally on a meeting like with a client taking notes, all these things. And I was like, I'm available at 3:30. I'll call you then.
Yeah.
Like, and you're right. Boundaries. Okay, cool. Sounds good. You know?
Yeah.
But like the people who push it, listen.
They're not the people. They're not your people.
They're not your people. But also respect yourself enough to create those boundaries.
Yeah. And the thing too, I made myself so, and this is something I had to learn in the hardest way possible last year, was being overly accommodating is not a perk.
No.
And I've always been the person who's like, everyone can rely on me. If you're like, you could call me out in Fort Worth and be like, oh my God, I need to ride to work today. I would make that happen.
I know.
And it's like, why?
That was me too. Right.
You know?
You're not going to get a medal for like bending over backwards or exhausting yourself for somebody else.
And let's say I needed that.
Right.
I would never dare. I would never dare ask you.
Of course not.
Like, why would I ask for help?
Of
like
course.
Me? No, I don't need help.
I'm self-sufficient.
Yeah.
I can do all this by myself.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
And so
I'll run myself into the ground before I ask for help.
Literally.
I know.
So all of last year, I realized like, I have been so overly accommodating to all of my clients by being able to fix things last minute, take last minute requests, last minute calls, to being available, to helping them plan their parties, to babysitting their children, to doing everything, to picking up their lunch, like whatever it was. I would do it all thinking like, oh, they're going to totally appreciate this. Totally. Like, I'm going to be there. Like, they'll never stop working with me because I am the best. And then I realized it completely fucked their expectations.
Well, and you're not bringing equal business stature to the equation, right? Like, you need to come in and say, these are the services that I offer, and that's it.
Yeah.
If you want anything additional, I'll have to look and see if I'm available for that.
And then you can pay for it.
Right.
Because
you have to pay for that,
That's the problem I came into, was by the end of the year, as we got busier, I had to stop doing a lot of the things that I was doing as favors and for free and as accommodations, because it just wasn't realistic for me to maintain. But then they were thinking I was doing less than what they were paying for because they had gotten used to getting all of these things.
Right.
And I didn't think about that. So I'm sitting there thinking like, well, I'm just not doing you any favors anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Which there's not. But it really...
They're like, well, I thought my services included A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. You're like, no, it's A, B, C.
Because you were doing that. And how am I supposed to turn around and be like, oh, those were just favors?
Right.
Like, okay. Like, oh, I'm just not doing any favors anymore. And like, no one wants somebody doing them a favor.
Right.
Like, no one wants that. And so I just completely like sabotaged our client expectations. So now this year we ended up losing a handful of clients last year because of COVID for one. A lot of our clients were restaurants, so it was not feasible anymore.
Yeah.
Some of it was quality because of our new staffing, and then some of it was just people like just closing their business because we were working with such small clients where it was women who realized like they wanted to be full-time moms or they wanted to pivot their career. And so we learned like, okay, we need to be working with bigger clients because we don't want people to just decide to close their business.
Yes.
We need to be working with people who have more structure, because we can't be available to them to be their business consultant, their babysitter, their food delivery, like all these things. Like they need to have an assistant who can handle emails with us, like who can be responsive. Like we cannot chase everyone. And then we needed to increase our pricing so that we can now do all of the things that we were doing that were necessary, but charge for them.
Exactly.
Because there were so many times where I would have a client where, let's say, they needed a photo shoot, but I assumed, you can't assume people's financial position.
Right.
I would assume like, oh, well, they didn't ask for a photo shoot, so it's probably because they can't afford one, but they really need one. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. But since they didn't ask for it, but need one, I just won't charge them for it. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like...
What the fuck, self?
Right. And it's
what the fuck, Valerie?
Yes. And so then it's like I put myself in a bind, because it's not like I could later then be like, okay, now we'll do a photo shoot, but I'm going to have to charge you. And then because they're sitting there thinking that these are now for free.
Right.
So then I can't be like, oh, well, I did that one for free because I felt like you needed it. Because then they're sitting there like, well, I didn't ask for it for free.
Right.
Like I would have paid for like.
You're like, it was my inside guilt. I had to let it go.
Yeah.
And then also you're going to have to pay for this.
And there's like no explanation. It's just all silly.
Yeah.
So now this year, like we were able to pivot all of that. So now it's like, if we're doing something, it's not like it's paid for. And we racked up, we almost tripled our prices, because they're now including all of the things that are essential that we were doing because we felt the clients needed them. But because they need them, they're part of the package and we charge for them.
Yeah. And you got to pay for it, man.
And it's like, I know that seems like duh, like you're charging for the shit you're doing.
But also when you it's again, it goes back to the no one teaches you this shit, right? You have to learn this shit yourself. And then when you do, you increase your prices.
Yeah. And it's just, it racks your brain sometimes, because I spent a long time being like, how can they keep taking advantage of me when I'm so accommodating?
Right.
And it's like, that's what it is.
They take advantage of you because you are accommodating.
Yeah, it's like I'm like literally saying it. Yeah, but then I'm saying, I'm like, but how?
You just figured out your answer.
It's so facto, like, and so it's just. It's crazy how it like comes full circle like that. But that's why, to circle back to the point, that's why I want to start this new podcast, is because no one teaches you that. No one talks about it. No one is telling you how fucking hard it is, how much you have to work, how much in the beginning you might have to do free work, but how to do free work without getting screwed, how to increase your prices. And no one's telling business owners who do want to do their own marketing, like, okay, well, what is content? Like this ambiguous overarching term that is like ruling our lives right now.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's meant to be super, super informative with actual information. Like I'm so tired of the inspirational shit.
Yeah.
Like
I know.
Like when I go
Don't
to
give me fluff.
Yeah.
I don't have time for fluff.
I'm like, I already got inspired. I already quit my job and took the dive out the plane with no wings. Like now
the engine was on fire. Like what do you want from me?
Yes. Like I don't need any more inspiration. And it's like, and I think it's also a little bit belittling, because these women are smarter than that.
Yeah.
Like we can inspire all day, but it's like, okay, then what? And I feel like
I need tangible shit.
Yeah.
I need shit that I can implement into a plan in my life.
Yes.
Right.
And it's like, I want to skip all the bullshit. Like I want to skip the whole, like, you got to get over imposter syndrome. Like we know that.
Yeah.
Like I know I got to get over my imposter syndrome, but like, how do I do bookkeeping? Like the IRS doesn't care about my imposter syndrome.
Exactly.
So I'm so excited for it.
And that one's called the Creative
Entrepreneur.
Perfect.
Yep. And
Cool.
so it's for every creative and every entrepreneur. I'm going to have experts on as well. So I'm going to talk to, local businesses and hopefully some larger businesses as well that have really done a lot for themselves in the marketing world, but then also in the business world. So a lot of self-made women who I know are going to be willing to share that stuff because I don't want it to be the fluff. Like I really want it to be like, okay,
tangible information, helpful.
Yeah. Like when you say time blocking, literally give me the 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. What are the blocks?
Right.
The whole thing,
That is so awesome.
I'm excited.
Look at you just giving back.
I know.
I know.
Full circle.
It's just like full circle.
I'm healing my inner child.
If this wasn't Thursday, I would say we could go for 3 hours, but sadly we cannot. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. You will have to come back before 2 years next time. Thank you.
Because then we'll have
great.
15 businesses to cover.
Exactly. And then we'll need 7 hours. But no, thank you. And for everyone who's listening, if they want to find you, any of the companies that you listed, I want you to tell them where to find you. So Instagram or your website.
Yes.
Whichever one.
So to find me personally, Instagram is Valerie Rocio, Rocio. You'll find in my bio all of the companies.
They all have little @signs.
Yes, they do. Social media girl. But if you want to look them up directly, Lumos Creative is LUMOS .creative. And then there's Wanderlust.picnics and Lumos.moments because we love consistency.
Perfect. Okay. Perfectionism at its finest.
Yeah. We're all one big family. And then the You Glow Girl podcast is You Glow Girl podcast on Instagram. And
then whenever your new one comes out, I'll share it on my story and I'll...
so that one will not have its own Instagram because boundaries.
No, it's fine. I'll just share the information.
Thank you.
You can just send me a picture or whatever you want. And then potentially, like if it's on Spotify or Apple, I'll share the link too so people that are listening can find it too.
Perfect.
Because I do have a lot of... I've had a couple people on here who are creative, and I've had a shitload of entrepreneurs, so I know that they'll appreciate that too, and women that want to break out, that need that information. So
so that'll be coming April 2022. And then if you have any questions, or if you just want to talk, like, or if you want some like raw, like not even advice, but just insight, like DM me. I'm really open to chatting.
You're the best. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Anytime, literally. Thank you for listening to Big Girl Pants Podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at biggirlpantspod@gmail.com. Please like the podcast, subscribe, and leave us a review. 5 stars only, please. Thank you very much. But yeah, thank you for listening. Bye.